So, and guys, if you have any questions, if you want to interact with the speaker or with anyone, you can just uh, either unmute yourself or you can write in the chat. So the speakers or other attendees can participate in the discussions. And also, please adhere to the topic of presentations, topic of discussions, so that it will help us to make best out of the session slots. So with this, let me move on to my quick slides around the community about how we are doing with Nepal Cloud Professionals and all. So basically, Nepal Cloud Professionals is a community of professionals uh, uh, from Nepal, mainly from Nepal, and but it is not limited to Nepal because we are all across the social media, including we have 2,000 plus members in Facebook. Um, and we have presence in LinkedIn, we have presence in YouTube, Meetup, Insta, and all. So this group is basically about a Microsoft cloud platform, not just limited to Microsoft Azure, but also is around the .NET and um, uh, DevOps, Azure DevOps, and then Microsoft 365 and Dynamics 65 and Power Platform. So yeah, and just to make sure that we are when we are into the meetup discussions, please be friendly and patient. Please be welcoming and respectful. Please understand that there are differences between the people coming in from a different background and all. So please respect each other, and let's collaborate. Let's have vibrant discussions. So quick intro about myself. I'm Pradeep Karel, and I work for Dogma Group. I am a Microsoft MVP, and I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer and a lot into the tech community over the last about 10 plus years. So I'm not going much into my details, but just wanted to give you, wanted to welcome you into Microsoft tech community on behalf of Nepal Cloud Professionals. So, like I said, Nepal Cloud Professionals is part of one of the Microsoft Azure Tech community, or the official Microsoft Azure Tech communities, and the objective is to provide mentorships, to provide workshops, have presentations, webinars, provide an opportunity to partner, to network with the people in the community, and so on. So I'm highlighting the mentorships part here because many a times there are people who look for mentorships, and there are many a times that who is willing to provide mentorships in the community. So many a times we would like to do the matchmaking as well. So this could be of your interest. If this is of your interest, please to reach out. I think I sort of talked to you about the community guidelines. This is also mentioned in our website, NepalCloudPro.org, and other social links as well. Yeah, with this, I just wanted to give you an idea that over the last couple of years, we have been running a lot of Microsoft 365 developer bootcamps, or be the Azure bootcamp, hackathons, and then so we have partnered with the Asia Pacific Data Platform community and come up with the various sessions around data platform. We have also run a global AI bootcamp in the past, and we hope to do it in the coming days as well. So yes, and just wanted to highlight this, that if you are willing to speak in the upcoming meetups, please do send your interest. There's a link that I can provide, but just reach me, and or I mean, it's quite easy. So I'll be able to share the speaker form. So once you fill in, we will have you in the list of the potential speakers for the upcoming meetups. So with this, I want to kickstart this today's meetup, where we have really good speakers lined up. Sandesh Karki is the software engineer, and he's based in Nepal, but now in Australia. So so I think Sandesh is already in the call. But let me move on to the next speaker. We have Saad Mohammed, Senior Data Scientist at Microsoft. So I really don't want to introduce myself because I want to give this a space to the speakers themselves. And then we have Abhishek Shukla, Senior Technical Architect at SCL Technologies. So last but not the least, we have Yubaraj Dahal, Senior Engineer at Altizen. So I'm sure that we are going to have a great session today. So please enjoy these sessions and try to participate in the discussions, try to ask questions to the speakers. Let's not rush, but let's be on time. So yeah, if you have any further questions or anything, please do feel free to reach out to me. So with this, if you want to reach me out, you can also reach me at pradeep.colonel@nepalcloudpro.org. Yeah, with this, I would like to move on to our speaker. Our first speaker. Let me check into the chat. Mohammed, for your session today. It was very enlightening, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. So with this, if there's no question, shall we move into the next session? So yeah, let's move ahead, and with this, let's have our next session around the event-driven architecture using Azure Event Grid. So this is going to be with Abhishek Shukla. So I'm not going to introduce Abhishek because I would really expect that you spend some time, about a minute or two at least, to speak about yourself first and then move into the session. So over to you, Abhishek.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. And those who are not from our time zone, please accept my greeting as per the times in their respective time zones. So let me share my screen. Uh, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Abhishek Shukla, and I'm Senior Technical Architect in HCL Technologies India, and having around 18 plus years of experience. And we used to develop means I used to develop solutions related to Microsoft Azure, means designing and developing solutions with leveraging the capabilities offered by Microsoft Azure for various of our customers. So if anyone would like to reach me, he can reach me on my Gmail ID, and if you would like to connect me, you can also connect me onto the LinkedIn. So before starting the today's session that is related to event-driven architecture by using Event Grid, let's have some discussion on what is an event. So anyone who would like to answer this, who can answer this, or I will explain that what's we mean by an event. So event is like something which has happened, a phenomena which occurred for a very small amount of time. That's called an event. You just switch on the lights. It's an means clicking to that switch is an event. For an example, you are living in a room and suddenly there got a fire and there is a smoke. So immediately, as soon as the detectors detects the smoke and they raise the fire alarm, it's an event. So event is something happen. Event, it will give you some sort of notification. It will trigger a reaction. You clicked on the switch and either the light will put on or the light will put off. So it triggers a reaction. Events is always based on the facts. So like because you have clicked onto the switch, that's why either the power has been put it on or put it off. There was a smoke or there was a fire. That's why the sensors rings. And even can be discrete or it can be based on certain series. So type of events can be divided into the discrete events and the series event. So discrete events are generally the independent event. You put it on the switch, that's on. And as soon as you click onto the switch, the state has been changed. The state of the object has been changed and it's actionable because the light were on or the light were off. So it's an actionable. When we talks about series of events, so it means they are the time-based event and they have certain context. On by using those contexts, you can partition them. Time-based events used to report their conditions and they are analyzable. So if you say something is going to fail, for an example, you are using a web server and suddenly the load get starts increasing. And after a certain time, you find that your web application or web server is not able to respond for the events or response for the new request. It means it's analyzable. Once you will get all the logs, the data from that events or data from that series, that what happens, you can analyze that what happened, why your server become unusable, why it is not responding to the request. When we talks about the application developments, we used a few patterns to create the applications. The very common is the message based pattern. So you says, okay, your producer, consumer, or multiple services in your application will get interact to each other on the basis of some messages. Same is happens onto the events also. The only difference between the messages and the event is like the communication, how the communication will happen. If you are developing a message based solution, it means you are expecting that whosoever is receiving your message will respond, right? If I am asking you whether my screen is visible or not, I am assuming that okay, someone will respond to it. But if I will talk about the same thing onto the event driven, or I will talk about onto the event notification, I will simply not bothered about that what happened to my receivers. I have shared my screen. No matter you are able to share, see it or not, right? So even if we will try to distinguish between the event driven versus the event sourcing, so event driven says it's event notification, like broadcast state changes. Then no exception, no expectations from the customer or no expectations from the consumers. It you can say it's like a fire and forget kind of scenario. Just send your event information and forget about it. What happened? It is basically used for decoupled logic, right? So you can say that your applications are completely decoupled. Your producer and consumer both are completely decoupled. Producer send the events, no matter consumer is analyzing or consuming that event or not, or what happened to your event. When it comes to the event sourcing, so event sourcing says that it will persist the state change. It means if you will replay the events into the reverse order or the order in which they occur, you will get uh, the initial state of your object. And event sourcing is auditable. As well as event sourcing also offers you the replay capabilities. So why we should prefer event driven architecture instead of messaging architecture, right? So let me open a, okay, so when we say that we are using event driven or the messaging, so let first what will happen if we will use the messaging architecture. In the messaging architecture, definitely you will have a broker in between, and that may be your storage queue, or it may be your Azure service bus queue, Or if you don't want to go for any specific Azure services, you can leverage any other options available. So in this case, what will happen whenever the consumer will send the events, your event, whenever the consumer will sends the messages, right? They all get stored here into the broker, and your consumer will have to do a poll operation, so that time to time it will go and check that whether there is a message or not, whether there is a message or not, right? So this is message based pattern. If you are not using any brokered message, any broker between the producer and the consumer, your producer and consumer can directly have all this. Okay, so you can send the message and you will accept that that there will be a response from the consumer side, so that you should able to know that what happens. It's a kind of acknowledgement mechanism. All these both of these like architecture have their own pros and cons, because here you are saying that okay, these two are directly connected to each other. So producer must be producer must know that what is the location of your consumer, where it is going to send the events, if this is a direct where it is going to send the events or the messages, if there is a direct communication. By having the broker in between, you are achieving a decoupled in your architecture, that now producer not need to bother about it, that who is going to consume the messages. Maybe down the line or after some time you can change this consumer, you can have another consumer here, right, who will respond or who will process all these messages which are there into the message broker, or you can say which are there into your storage queues or service bus queues. What happened into a event driven architecture? In an event driven architecture, your producer will simply send an event to your consumer, but not directly to the consumer. He will simply send the events to a event broker in between, right? So all the events will go to this event broker, and your event broker will have the consumers, or you can say the listeners, registered to this broker. Okay, and instead of having the polling between the consumer and the broker, it will simply a push mechanism. Your producer is pushing the events to your event broker, and event broker is further pushing it to the listeners or to the event handlers, or you can say the consumers. Okay, so event driven architecture consists of event producers that generates a stream of events, and events consumers those listens for those events. And event driven events are delivered in a nearly real time, right? No polling mechanism is required. What happens in the polling mechanism? You need to define that after, if there is no message there, then after how long time next polling action will be happen. So you can say sometimes it may be the linear, it may be the exponential. So if it is linear, you can say 2 4 6 8. If it is an exponential, you can say 2 4 16, and then further. Event driven architectures uh, is used to implement whenever you would like to process the single event processing, or you would like to process the complex event, sometimes event streaming processing also. But when we say event streaming processing, it means we have other services available in Microsoft Azure which you can leverage, especially the event hub. And if you are looking for the open source, then you can have we have Kafka available. And if you would like to port your open source Kafka implementation, suppose you are already using that Kafka and you would like to port it into Microsoft Azure, yes, you can port it to Microsoft Azure by using the respective SKU of your Azure Event Hub, where you can enable the Kafka streaming. So you can use those things to process the events. Okay, so as I said, in event-driven architecture, event producers need to ingest the event to your event broker, and event broker will further push those events to event consumers. Is it not necessary always that each and every event will be sent to every consumer until and unless you have specified in that way? So you can have the filtering also. So you can define all those things. Now, if I would like to create a event-driven architecture on Microsoft Azure, then what kind of feature Microsoft Azure offers us? So as I said, if it is a large streaming data you need to process, you can go with the Azure Event Hub. If there is a large streaming of data that is coming from the device sensors, or it's a kind of IoT related applications, you can go with the IoT Hub, as well as we have another service in Azure that's called Azure Event Grid. You can also leverage this service to build event driven architectures on Microsoft Azure. Okay, so it's uh, has outbound connectivity with various Azure services, as well as it also offers custom connectivity. So your custom applications can also connect to event grid for sending the events or from receiving the events. Okay, so if I will talk about that, what are the various services which a event grid can support, but prior to that, what kind of capabilities we have? So event grid is very simple to use. It has advanced filtering. You can filter it. You can filter out the events before sending to the listeners. It supports fan out. So when we said fan out means there will be one input and it can go for the multiple output. It's called the fan in or fan out architecture. So you can say that, okay, this is like fan in, and from here it's going to for multiple or single, it's called fan out. Then its reliability. As your event grids are reliable, it has 24 hours retry with exponential backoff, so that it will make sure that events will be delivered. Now, when it comes to the cost, you will have to pay for pay per event. It's not like that you just created a event grid and you have to start paying. No, until and unless you have no consumer defined into it, no listener defined into it, and you are not sending any event to it or distributing event through it, you will not be charged. It has a very higher throughput, and it is have supports for the built-in event. As well as I said, you can use custom applications to leverage event grid in your in your solution. So in a hands-on demo, I will let you know that how we can leverage the C sharps to get interact with event grid. Before moving forward, anyone have any questions? Okay, so let's move forward. As I said, that Event Grid has built-in support for various Azure services. So onto the left-hand side of this image, you can see that Event Grid can be linked with blob storage, with media services, Azure subscriptions, resource groups, Event Hub, IoT Hub, Service Bus, and the custom topics. When we said custom topics, it means you can write your own code to get interact or to get integrated your application with event grid. Onto the right hand side, you can see that the types of event handlers which a event grid supports. So you can use Azure function. You can write Azure functions, and within the Azure functions, you can write the logic that how you would like to process these events, and you have to write the code by yourself. Then we also have the Logic app. So Logic app, we know that it's a workflow driven service. It's a serverless service where you can create the visual workflow. You can use Azure automations, as well as you can create webhooks also, no matter whether these webhooks are created within the Microsoft Azure subscription or it's somewhere else. If you have a generic webhook which can accept any incoming data, then yes, you can use it. So for an example, if you would like to use a HTTP bin kind of service, then you can use it. But before using, make sure that sometimes because it's a public service, and if you are creating an endpoint and you are publishing it, then your data will be there, and anyone who know the address of that public webhook, he can also see that data. Then queue storage can also be used as a listener for your event grid. Whatsoever event will be delivered to this queue storage, it will be stored there as a packet, the message packets. You can create hybrid connections. So you can use your on-premise applications or applications running in some other cloud, but they can listen the events for your event grid. As well as you can also create event hubs. So you can integrate event hub with Azure event grid. If large number of events are getting uh, processed by event grid, then definitely event hub will be the good options because it has auto scale up properties, and you not need to worry about the scaling your handlers as per the demand increases. Okay, so when we used to work with event, so every event must have some information available so that it will be able to understand by your listeners or by the event grid itself. So event grid says it must have the event. So what happened? Event sources where the event took place, whether it's an storage, it's an Azure functions, it's an resource group, or any custom application. There must be event subscriptions. So there must be listener attached so that they will process your events. Then the event handlers, actually the listeners, and these event handlers you have to attach by creating the subscriptions onto the event grid. So we will see that how it works. So you see that there are multiple sources and these sources are generating the events. These sources may be out of box connector and they may be the custom. And onto the right hand side, you have subscriptions created, and these subscriptions are created for the handlers. Okay, and these handlers are responsible to consume or process your events. So let me demonstrate how we can create the Azure event grid onto the portal. So let me know once you guys are able to view my screen. Bring it from.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, actually I'm using this two monitor setup and sometimes it causes problem. Okay, so you have to go to the portal.azure.com. And you need to select the event grid topic, or you can search it from here. So you have to go to the event grid topics. And I yesterday when Pramod approaches me, then I created one, but just let me create the another one. So create a resource group. Let's RG demo. You have to give a name. It should be meaningful name. So demo event grid. I hope it will be available. and the region where you would like to create it. So East US. Here you can see onto the advanced tab that you have to define that what kind of schema you are assuming that your event grid will honor. So currently we have event grid schema and we have CCNF specified cloud event schema version 1.0, or we can have our own custom input schema also. So CCNF is a governance body which has their own schema, and event grid schema is based on that. So for this demonstration purpose, we will restrict ourselves for this event grid schema. And these two are not required because they have some other use cases. It's related to identity. So this is not required for that demo, and let me provision it. So once the review will be done, the provisioning for your event grid will get started. Till the time it's getting provisioned. So anyone have any question you can ask. Deployment get failed. The name of this is already exist. Sounds good. Okay, so I need to go back. And this time RG demo and event grid 31st July. Okay, so meantime, we also need to create a listener for it. So I have already created a few listeners. I will let you know that for the demonstration purpose, how you can create a listener in a short period of time. Okay, so this has been created. And if you will go to here, you can see that to connect your event grid, you have to use these access keys. So either the primary or the secondary access key, which you would like to use, you can use it. And this is the endpoint where your event sources need to publish the event, right? So these two way is always required whenever you would like to use event grid into your solution. If you are doing the same within the subscription itself, maybe you can select it from the drop down, but from the custom, you definitely need it. And here you see this is the event subscription. So event subscription says that you have to subscribe, you have to add some listeners, or you have to add some consumers. Either you can use this particular visual interface, or you can go for the advanced editor and you can put the JSON there. So let me give a name. So we will say sub1, and it's related to the filtering. So we will come later on to it. And here it's the endpoint detail. Endpoint details means the subscriber, the listeners of your event grid, or the listeners attached to your event grid who will process the event. And here it's the filtering logic that only respective events for which these listeners are registered will send to them. If you will go here, you can see that this particular event grid or a event grid supports Azure Function, Webhook, storage queues, Event Hub, hybrid connections, and all these services as a listener. If you are using Azure functions within your own subscriptions or connected subscriptions, you can easily go and select it. Right, so you have to select your subscriptions. If your Active Directory is associated with multiple subscriptions, then you can select the subscriptions from the drop down, and you can drill down, select it, and it's done. If you have a generic webhook, yes, you can change it. You can select a webhook. Now A webhook can either be within your subscription, it may be outside of your Azure subscription, it may be any public endpoint. So let's create a listener for it. And to create a listener, we will go and create a Azure web app, and we will create a Docker containerized application. So you have to create a app service, and use this demo. Uh, Event listener 31st July. Let's have a Docker container, premium P2 Docker, and I will use a Microsoft supplied application from Docker Hub registry. And let's have review plus create. So the meantime this listener is getting created, let me demonstrate how it looks like. And okay, let it be created. So webhook is there. Now, meantime, it's getting created. Let's jump back to the presentation. Okay, so as I said, every event must have some schema, and schema is this particular schema is used to follow. No matter whether you are supplying a out of the box connected event or you are supplying a custom created event, you have to follow the schema. So each event must have a topic. Topic means the endpoint where you are going to send that event. It must have a subject related to a string, must have a ID. It may be a GUID to identify the event. Event time is must. Event type is must. Event time at which time this event has been occurred, and data is your actual data. It may be anything like smoke detected in room 1, room 2, or any specific location. If you will talk about the real life application, say you are doing some sort of online purchasing, as soon as you purchased a product and your order is get confirmed, so this particular information will act like a data that customer X has purchased the product 1 and this event has now been broadcasted. If multiple listeners are there, then you can say a warehouse listener, which will decrease the count of the product offering by 1 because one item, because one instance of that item is already being sold. Then because item has already been sold, then another listener, say shipment, they will process this data that they need to first package your item, and they need to call the logistics service that okay, shipment need to be shipped to this particular uh, location. Then once it is done, another listener will process the same event to send the email notification or the SMS notifications to the respective buyer that yes, your product has been purchased. This particular scenario which I given to you, it can be delivered either by using message based scenario or it can be delivered by event driven application. So according to your choice, whichever way you would like, but the preferred is still the event driven architecture. So if you will see a real life event, a demo, so this particular event is generated by a blob storage. A blob storage event is like blob created or blob deleted. So it has all the information. Where the blob event has been generated, you can see this, the URL means the storage account as well as the container. The type of blob, like it was a blob type or it was a It was a append block kind of type. Who was the client who requested this? Who created this blob? So all this information will be there, and the listeners has to process this data part. As I said, every event has all these properties. Now come back to the portal and let's see if this has been created or not. So okay, so let me see if this has been, yeah, so we can see that this has been created. The web portal is also get created. And let me browse this portal. So this is the endpoint of your portal, and we will use this portal for viewing the events which we are sending to our event grid. So let me copy this. So this is a generic event viewer. Same you can, but right now it's not associated. It's not connected to your event grid. It's a generic web application. How you can connect it to your event grid? You have to subscribe, and you have to add this event grid as a subscription. So to add it, we have to modify certain with this. So this will be the address which I need to use. That's okay. And go back to webhook and let me use this. So as soon as I will add this, a very first event will start displaying there. So confirm selection and let me create. So you see the very first event, it's near real time uh, mechanism to deliver your event. And what is this event? This is a very specific type of event. This particular specific event calls subscription validation event. So it is not necessary that always you will connect a webhook and you will start receiving the events. No, you have to first validate. You have to provide that yes, you are the actual owner of this application. Okay, you are the actual owner of this web hook. How you can do this? So whenever this particular event comes, the very first event, it comes with two things. This is the validation code as well as the URL, this validation URL. If you are using any third-party service as a event grid listener, you do not have the control onto the source code. You can use this URL and put a GET request either by using any application or by just using browser. Once you will do this, only after having this mechanism, your event grid will accept this webhook as a listener. This particular event URL and the response code will only valid for 5 minutes, right? But if you are writing your webhook by using some code, you have the direct control, then you can filter it out this event and you can programmatically do a echo operation so that you not need to do this operation manually. So I will let you know how we can do this. So here I am onto this my Visual Studio, and I have created this self registration HTTP trigger as your function. And in this HTTP trigger as your functions, you can see at here. So this is something like I was doing to figure it out whether it's a single event or a batch of events, etc. But you have to more focused onto this. Once you have received the events, right? Once you have received the events, then you have to figure it out whether it's a subscription validation event or not. And if this is a subscription validation event, then programmatically you can do the echo operation. Now you can see, because I am doing this programmatically, I not need to put any GET operation. Okay. And this is the event which comes you during the creation or during the updation of your event listener. Right. Later on is created for some different purposes. So I will let you know why I have created. I have already deployed this into the Azure subscription so that we can use this Azure function as a event, I will say as an event listeners, right? Here you can see that once I got the event data, here I am doing some processing. Instead of doing any processing, I am inserting the entire event data into my Azure storage table. Okay, reason behind is because I would like to avoid the using any HTTP bin service, and I would like to demonstrate how you need to process the data. So you can see that you can typecast the incoming JSON in, you can typecast into the object, and then you can do the processing. So for an example, customer has already purchased the data. You have the customer ID, you have the product ID, you have the product name. Now, if you would like to send the greeting email to the customer, you can easily send it. Guys, just give me one moment. The battery is getting discharged. Just give me one moment. Okay, so you have to process that event. So I am processing the event data just to ingest the entire event into my storage account. Okay, so I have already deployed this application, as well as I also have another applications to send the event, right? How you can send program, how you can programmatically send the events. So I created this small interface to demonstrate it. And it's by using few line of code, I am able to send my data to my event grid. So I need to provide the event grid topic URL. I need to provide the access key as well as the subject and the event type and the data. For this demonstration, we will use the simple string based data. And these are just the few line of code which I have written to send, or you can say the submit my events to the event grid. Okay. As I said that it's already been deployed. So where it has been deployed. So this is your event grid. And this has been, let me go to azure.com. And you see this function app. So as I created a HTTP triggered function app, I have deployed it here, and I can go and see the functions. And this is the URL of the function. So copy this URL. Now, what I am doing into this function, so you can see it here, that this function is an parameterized function. I am providing a parameter here within these curly brackets, right? And to have this, what I am going to do this, I would like to create a Azure storage table as soon as I will use this Azure function as a registration, as a event listener or subscription. Why I created a parameterized way? So that I can use single functions to ingest multiple type of events here. So let me give this a name like demo. So here this will be the URL. And let me try to register this URL. So once this URL will get registered, it will create a Azure storage table name as Nepal. So registration, we have to go here, create an event registration. And you can see that I don't have any table named Nepal here. Okay, let me go to the storage account. And this particular storage account is used to deploy this Azure function. Right now, I don't have any table here. So go back to and select a webhook. I will use this Azure function endpoint. It's Nepal demo, confirm selection, create. So as soon as I will register it, event grid will send a subscription validation event to this endpoint. And once that event will go there, it will successfully create an echo, right? So it's not created now. Sometimes it takes time. So let see, it will get created. Now let me demonstrate that how you can send the events programmatically to this event grid. Okay, so currently we have this. This has been registered here. Okay, let me execute this submitter. Okay, event grid July 13. Go to the resource. Right. So here is the endpoint. Okay, so we can say the subject line is demo. This is demo event. And the type is okay. So one event has been submitted. And if I will go to this event viewer, we can see that event demo has been here. And if I will submit multiple events, it's near real time. I am submitting the events from here. The event grid is somewhere in East US. Listeners is also in East US. So it's getting created there. And now let me go to see whether this Nepal table has been created or not. Okay, so this table has already been created, the Nepal demo. And if I will open it here, I can see that all the 5 events which I have submitted, all these events are here. So by processing all these event data, I have captured the entire things here. And now, as per your requirement, as per your functionality, you can process these event data and you can use it further. Meanwhile, any questions so far? Okay. So if we will see it here, so how a normal events looks like if it is not a event subscription validation event. So you can see that whatsoever information we are submitting from here, that's all getting here. Now you see that demo events has been listened by this event viewer as well as my Azure function also. Let me filter it on based on this event type, how I can do that. So I will clear all the events from here. And if I will go to the overview and the respective event subscription for which I would like to modify the filter for this. And okay, so I have to go to the filter section. And here I need to enable it for add event type because we would like to filter the event on the based on the event type. So demo event, and I will save it. Okay, and let me remove all such. Okay, so this has been done. It's already been saved. Deploying in subscription Nepal. Now, instead of sending this demo event, I will send the event like demo event 1. Because I have created a filter, then this particular event will not delivered to my Azure webhook, but it will be delivered here. Okay, so it's there, second, third, but it will not be there into my Azure table storage. Because of this filtering. If I will send the event like demo event, then it should be there into my table storage as well as into this viewer also. So let me here. So you see the two events which a events listener was entitled, it's there. If I would like to create another event and I would like to have it for some different uh, requirement or filtration, I can use the same Azure function endpoint which I have created. I can use that same Azure function endpoint by just changing the name, and I can register it for, you say, demo event 2. So let it be created here. Event subscription. Demo event 2. And this is the event grid topic. So event type. Demo event 2. Webhook. Let me create, this is for demo event 2. Right, so 2 event has been published, and it will take some time. This table need to be created and the events need to be populated here because it's an Azure table storage. So that's okay. It takes time. The first operation because of this cold start of the Azure function. Here you can see for any event subscription you can use custom filtering also. So either you can filter on the basis of the event type as well as you can filter on based on the subject. So you can filter the events listening based on the subjects also. So for an example, like if subjects begin with or subjects end with. So let me jump to the presentation. So as I said, you first have to provide the valid webhook and you have to prove that you are the owner of that webhook. So if you are doing it from the code, you can do a synchronous handshake. If you are not doing it with the code, you can go with a asynchronous handshake and you can use the validation code and validation URL property. So filtering can be based on the subject and filtering can be based on to your event type. So you can plus you can have custom filtering also, but you have to make sure you should minimize the filtering because filterings will affect the costing of your Azure event grid. This is a use case on which currently I am working. Like, so this particular use case is a combination of event grid with Azure functions as well as the Azure cognitive services plus few more Azure services. So here in this case, whenever someone will upload a file to the blob, and blobs has out of the box connectivity, right? So a event will get generated, and we have created respective event handler for the respective cognitive services. So one document will be processed by multiple cognitive services. And because in the event into a cloud storage event or a blob storage event, we have the blob path also. So Azure functions will pass on this information to the cognitive services, and cognitive will process that document or the image either for the transcriptions, either for the image, either for documentation or some specific purposes also, and will update some other services based on the response coming from the cognitive services. So this is something called event domains. It is basically used, you can say that instead of using, you would like to have the multiple event grids, they are living into the various multiple Azure Active Directory. So yes, it's called the event domains, and one event grid can submit the information to the other event grids also. So by this, I would like to conclude it. So anyone have any question, they can ask me. Hello. Does anyone have any question?
Looks like no questions. Very pretty silent. I see Aditya, you have joined the call. Any questions, Aditya? Or Prateek, Raman? How are you finding it, Raman?
Yeah, it was a good session, but yeah, no question at all, brother.
Okay. Okay, nice.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining this.
Yeah, are we done, Abhishek?
Yeah, I have done. If you guys have any real time scenario where you would like to ask that how Event Grid can help us, or any messaging kind, yeah, I am okay for it. If anyone who is willing to use the Azure Event Grid into their solutions or POCs, they can ask.
All right. Obviously, it would be great if you are able to join Nepal Cloud Professionals group. It's a Facebook group. If you are in Facebook, and you could join that. It is just facebook.com/groups.
Okay. Yeah, definitely I will join. Okay, so let me off the sharing now.
Yeah.
Okay, so is my
So
screen
yeah,
still
thank
visible?
you. Yeah. Mhm.
Is my screen still visible?
No, it is not. It
Yeah.
is
Okay.
not.
Yeah. Yeah, Pradeep, you can.
Okay. Seems like I'm getting some feedback. Anyways, give me a second. All right, so with this, we had one more session planned, but due to some technical reasons, we are unable to continue on that. So with this note, I would like to, before I conclude, I would like to thank our supporters once again, our supporters, TechSathi, Microsoft, Dogma Group, for making sure that the session goes smooth and everything is planned as needed in time. And I would also like to thank all our speakers today for contributing in your time to speak. Sandesh Karki, Saad Mahmood, Abhishek Shukla, and Yuvraj Dahal. So Yuvraj would be continuing on to our next meetup, as he says, because of some technical issues. So with this, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. I'm sure that somehow you were able to gain some understanding around these topics around Azure, various Azure services, primarily around Azure services, and hope to meet again very soon, probably the next month itself. But depending on the, we need to figure out the topics, area of interest, and yeah. So if you have any specific concerns or topics that you would want us to cover in our upcoming meetups, please reach me. You can or directly write at Nepal Cloud Professionals groups as well. So yeah, uh, if there is no further questions, I would like to formally close this session today. I'll be here for another 1 minute if there's anything that you would like to mention or speak about. But yeah, let's formally close this session today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining it. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Pradip, for organizing the session.
Thank you.